Welcome everyone to the Joint Multinational Readiness Center Train to Win podcast. I'm your host, Major Jason Turner, Deputy Senior Fires Trainer here at JMRC. For this month's podcast, we're going to discuss trends we're seeing that are impacting our firing battery's ability to provide timely and accurate fires. With me, I have Captain Frank Westbrook and Captain Chad Evans, both observer coaches and trainers here at JMRC, who have operated at the battery and staff level. Great to have you all with me here today. So each of the topics we're going to cover will shed light on trends we're seeing that are affecting the HHB, firing batteries, and FSCs that ultimately are negatively impacting our ability to provide those timely and accurate fires. So the first topic I want to discuss is often what is the first priority of work in any tactical environment, and that's going to be security. So Captain Evans and then Captain Westbrook, could you please highlight some of the trends that you're seeing at the battery level with respect to security?
Yes, this is Captain Evans. So talking security, one trend that we're seeing here at JMRC is batteries security of the FDCs. One of the things I've come across is the RSOP, when the battery commander goes out and selects a site for the FDC. Either the FDC is not in a secure place to defend itself, or the FDC is in a bad location for security from enemy forces with bad communications back to the battalion FDC and the battery guns.
All right, team, this is Captain Frank Westbrook. So when we're talking about battery level RSOP, this is integral whenever you're getting ready to accomplish your mission. So once you get your mission from the battalion, RSOP should be kicked out. It's a good planning tool. There's different ways that you can do it, map, aerial recon, but the end state is the same. You want to get your battery into the position, the best position possible, in order to facilitate the mission set that's coming down from your higher headquarters. So it's important to go ahead and make sure that you have the right personnel available, and you're looking for key things to make sure that the battalion can leverage your battery as an asset. You can do this in a myriad of ways. I've seen, being an OC, sometimes the battery commander will take a small element out with himself to go RSOP a location. You can bring an FDC. Some people even bring another gun out there to make sure that they can get in position ready to fire quickly and efficiently. So it's important that you figure out what the mission is. And I know we hear this old adage all the time, MET-TC dependent. Make sure that you have an accurate plan and you let your lower echelon, your section chiefs and your FDC know what you want to do and what you want to accomplish when you go out there. Site selection is very important, and it'll tie into your security. It'll tie into your reach back to battalion with your comms. You need to be looking at all this stuff when you do your RSOP, and make sure that your battery is able to get in position ready to fire as quickly as possible.
And Captain Westbrook, you bring up a great point when you talk about RSOP and who you bring out there with you. Understanding, the threats that we consider in our environment, there will be small teams or even unconventional forces that will be out there. They'll be looking to affect our formation. Our artillery and our fire direction centers likely will be high payoff targets for the enemy. So as you push that element out to do that RSOP, making sure that you have the requisite security to protect them along their movement as they're doing their RSOP, and in that transition between they've established a capability at that next position and we're pulling our other assets forward to co-locate within that artillery maneuver area. Making sure that you have security that can protect that element is really important. So Captain Evans, if you could provide us some insight on trends as it relates to the headquarters battery with RSOP and security.
So for headquarters battery, one trend we're seeing is the HHB commander either has a easy time selecting or a hard time selecting their next forward position. Considerations the battery commander needs to take in consideration is the battery locations, where they're either going or where they're currently at, and also where the brigade plans on jumping. So the benefits we have with having our battalion headquarters located near the brigade is the proximity of security forces that can support any actions that the battalion may encounter. So the proximity of security force with rearward considerations is something the HHB commander needs to pay attention to when selecting a forward position.
This is Captain Frank Westbrook again. Captain Evans makes a great point when it comes to camouflage, cover, and concealment of your battery. Utilizing your terrain is going to be key when you're coming up against a near-peer threat. You're going to have sensors that are looking for, quite frankly, high-value targets, which are our artillery assets and radar assets and things of that nature. So utilizing that terrain to break up that signature of what your weapons capabilities are and where they're located at. This can be done in a myriad of ways. You can use the vegetation that's around. You can use dispersion. There's plenty of ways to make sure that you make sure your battery is not easily accessible, whether it be ground or aerial, from the enemy.
This is Captain Evans again. So to talk on camouflage at the headquarters level, one trend we're seeing is battalion talks are having a hard time camouflaging their headquarters. Not only do we see many antenna farms, but also easily detectable HHBs from high-speed avenues approach or roads. So one thing that I'd recommend is not only bringing optimal amount of foliage or camouflage nets to hide those positions, but also having your security elements tuck into the wood line and disperse so that you don't give off a large signature at the talk.
So thank you, Captain Westbrook and Captain Evans. Some really great points. Just to wrap up the last thing on security, I mean, honestly, if we don't have the FA Battalion's assets, be it logistics and sustainment, radars, observers, or our guns or our FTCs, we don't have those systems in the fight. We don't provide any support to the brigade combat team or our decisive action fight that we have. So we have to secure ourselves so we can stay in the fight. We need to be able to mass, and we need to be able to provide accurate and timely fires. Otherwise, we're simply not going to be an asset, and we're not going to do what we're paid to do. So, again, appreciate those great points. As we look at maintaining our ability to provide that accurate and timely fires, I'd like to transition into our next talking point, and that's going to be database management. And that's all things that cover, our fire control, or the methods and control measures and the means that we use to provide safe fires for the brigade and for our fight. So Captain Evans, former battalion FDO, I'll pass it off to you. Any initial trends that you've seen, thoughts and TTPs on how the artillery enterprise can best manage databases for our safe employment of fires?
Major Turner, you discuss FSCM management. So one of the trends that we're seeing is units are successful coming to JMRC who have a digital SOP for database management established prior to coming. This is rehearsed in excess by the battalions prior to coming to JMRC through their DST program back at their home stations. Also, one thing we've seen is the brigade has to be diligent at managing FSCMs across all echelons with FSCM scrubs to mitigate large amounts of FSCMs that are out of play.
Captain Evans, you made some great points when we look at FSCM management. And I'd say one of the things that, one of the TTPs that was a success for my team when I was a brigade FSO was establishing an FSCM and ACM management SOP. What that did was it clearly defined who and how we established geometries or put FSCMs and ACMs on our analog systems. And what that really enabled us to do was maintain a level of, or a quantity of control measures that we could safely and accurately fight. One of the things that we often see a trend is units will create FSCMs and ACMs and the number of geometries into their AFATAD system, and it becomes unmanageable. They can't do those FSCM scrubs quickly enough or effectively enough to ensure that they are providing safe fires for their fight. So as you're looking at your digital SOP and database management, clearly defining how a FSCM or ACM is requested to be established, who establishes it, and how long it's established for, and who has the authority to make decisions outside of that SOP, proved really important. It enabled us to manage our analog and digital systems without becoming encumbered by too many FSCMs or too many ACMs. It also enabled us to provide timely fires because we didn't have a three-dimensional architecture that had so many coordination measures that it impacted our ability to shoot. So that SOP, once developed, understood at echelon between the field artillery and the infantry and cavalry, fire support and field artillery elements. Once that SOP was understood and rehearsed during home station training and our digital sustainment training, we were able to take that into our larger collective training events and be efficient with our time when it came to timely fires. And ultimately, the brigade FSC owns database management as it's the higher headquarters to both the observers as well as the FA battalion. And when that doesn't go right, or when we have points of friction within our database management process, it has second and third order effects down to the FA battalion and the battery FDCs. Captain Westbrook is a former, fire and battery commander. What trends are you seeing, and based off your experience, when it comes to database management that's impacting timely and accurate fires?
Hey, sir. So this is Captain Westbrook again. So the big three things that we see that are issues when it comes to database management is the firing battery FDC's ability that they will have to recalculate due to a myriad of issues. Target description will be a terrain feature, causing them to do a little bit more work to figure out the ammunition required in order to engage the target, or simply having to change their fire orders to be able to facilitate whatever the target is that's coming down from battalion and ultimately the FSC. The issues that come from this are directly because of lack of preferences, or again, FISC Court approved fire orders, or a accurate and up-to-date target list worksheet from the brigade FSC all the way down to the battalion and down to the battery for them to facilitate any targets that come down. And a way to get after this and make sure that we can minimize the fire mission processing time is utilizing DST from the brigade all the way down to the battery, and figuring out what issues that you're having with your products that need a little bit more resourcing or recalculating, so you can actually work that through before you actually get the ultimate fire mission and have to engage that target. And that doesn't mean that you just have to use DST. You can do internal rehearsals yourself. If you have a BOC-POC, that cold FDC should be in line with what that hot FDC is doing anyway. So if there's issues that they're having, that's a good opportunity for you guys to continue to work your systems to make sure you can get those fire mission processing times down quickly and efficiently.
And Captain Westbrook, you make some great points when you look at the management of the database and the second, third order effects down at the firing unit. And a lot of things, the points of friction that we identify, the trends that we see can be managed and mitigated up at the brigade FSC with that digital SOP. Creating those routine steps, those things that we rehearse so that we can master fundamentals will help us mitigate points of friction, self-induced most of the time, within our fires chain that are slowing down our fires. So the brigade FSC really owns a large portion of that process and making sure that when we do our rehearsals, technical or in person, we're going through the right level of detail. And when we're applying that to our digital system via our AFA-TADS, we're leveraging the AFA-TADS to the max of its capacity and streamlining human intervention points within that process by putting the guidances within our AFA-TADS. Last thing you touched on there was changing fire orders, mostly because our database didn't have the accuracy that should be put into it from our brigade FSE as we're doing our targeting process or MDMP and developing those fire support products which ultimately get put into our database to streamline our fires. One of the trends that we see when it comes to inaccuracies of databases and as you mentioned, that effect down at the firing unit, having to recalculate a mission, having to determine what the fire order should be because the mission came down with a target description of terrain. That impacts our ability to manage ammunition, which ultimately impacts our ability to provide timely fires and mass on our enemy. So one of the TTPs that we've seen is clearly defining from the FISCORD standard fire orders based off clearly articulated size of enemy formations for high payoff targets or systems that we've approved through our targeting process to effect. Captain Evans, also our senior sustainer here for the battalion staff, what trends have you seen within the within the battalion staff when it comes to the impacts of mismanagement of a database as it affects ammunition?
This is Captain Evans. So discussing mismanagement of databases, this also goes in effect when the fire order is something that isn't discussed at the brigade level. So when the battery does receive a fire order, they are shooting the wrong munitions. How this has an impact on ammunition management is they're not able to clearly project what ammunition you are firing. So it's a trickle effect all the way to the FSC level and distro to resupply you with the correct ammunition for your future missions and also limit the trips necessary to take to resupply your battery with the correct munitions for your upcoming missions.
Cam Evans, you make some great points. One of the major trends we see at JMRC is a misunderstanding of our ammunition requirements, partially through our targeting process and not determining the quantity of ammunition that's required to affect the formations that we know we need to through our targeting process, and that translating down to the forward support company and the FA battalion and their ability to ensure we have the right ammunition in the right place at the right time. So one of the trends that you've seen personally as kind of our senior sustainer OC, when a fire support plan makes it down to the battalion and then the battalion does their MDMP and issues their orders to the company, the forward support company, often we don't see a clear level of understanding of what needs to be where and at what time. And one of the things that I think is important to note when we talk about the role of the forward support company, they have their own tasks that they need to complete. One, securing themselves during their movements, during transitions where they're either onloading or offloading resources, and then making sure that as they're doing their forecasting, they have the right information. So when we look at ammunition management at the company and battery level, being able to give them clear guidance, clear understanding of what they're being asked to do and how they're being asked to do it, it's a common trend that we see that's not happening. We are getting some fire support products, right? The battalion will do MDMP and they'll develop a plan and they'll issue the plan. But often the pace of the battle is faster than the pace of our operations process. And forward support companies and those sustainers that are moving resources around the battlefield, both ammunition, and those resources to keep us fed and keep our guns in the fight, they don't have the level of consistency necessary to properly forecast in depth of time what needs to be moved when and where. Part of a second effect of a targeting process, maybe not going out in the depth of time that we want it to, that 72 to 96 hour mark, has effects on our sustainers' ability to forecast and anticipate requirements. So as we look at the forward support company and understanding its distro platoon and the capabilities that it has, the requirements that we know as an FA battalion will be put on the BSB and their Accu, giving us the quantity of ammunition that we're going to need to achieve the effects the brigade commander is going to ask of us. It's important to keep in mind that one of the common trends is we are often under predicting the amount of ammunition it's going to take to effectively affect the enemy, the high payoff target formation that we're going against, which means our anticipated requirements for the FSC or for Accu BSB is completely inaccurate. Often we don't have the right ammunition in the right place at the right time for us to provide those fires. So one thing, Captain Evans, I'm curious about when we look at trends, when it comes to distribution of ammo and predicting what we need, how does the FSC or the Battalion S4, how can they enable the FSC and the batteries to be better prepared to forecast and receive ammunition as we look at decisive action?
This is Captain Evans. So the Battalion S4 definitely owes predictability to the FSC commander, and also just their ability to do MDMP at the staff level. They know a lot more of what's going on in the future fights that maybe the FSC commander isn't necessarily seeing at his foxhole. So one thing that we've seen a very lack of at JMRC is the battalion's ability to do a log sync. For a log sync, I recommend having the battalion FDO, battalion S4, FSC commander, and the battalion XO all come together, discuss what the future fight looks like as far as ammunition projections and what CCLs are going to be needed for the future fights. This gets the FSC commander on the right track on how important his ammunition is for the batteries to have, what ammunition is going to which batteries, and definitely paints a good picture for the FSC commander in the future battle. The last thing I'd like to discuss is also the BSA personnel. We've seen a couple different things. If the battalion has an extra or an assistant S4, they can help out the FSC at the BSA for pushing and receiving ammunition from the division. And also we've also seen the FSC XO play a critical part in staying at the BSA location and receiving and pushing from that location as well.
Captain Evans, thanks for that insight. Really what you highlighted there was having the right people in the right location and having the right conversations will really help us predict what we need to know, what we need to have, and where we need to have it. And when we look at the battle rhythm of the FA battalion and how it impacts, our battery and companies within our own formation, that battle rhythm and being able to stick to the battle rhythm is really important because it provides predictability. It provides a level of consistency of information. So one of the trends that we've seen is when an FA unit sticks to a solid battle rhythm that focuses on ensuring it understands the plan. So our operations sync or op sync. It has a clear understanding of what logistics it needs and resources it needs to resource its fight or our log sync. And the units are aware of what the overall mission looks like through our updates, either our commander's update or our battle updates, our CUAs and our BUAs. When we can do these processes efficiently and effectively, and we have these routine touch points with leaders, across the formation, we're better prepared to understand what our requirements are. And one of the best battle rhythm events for the FA battalion, being that fires sync, ran from the brigade, including all the elements of the fires chain, to include our firing batteries and our FSE within the FA battalion. That nightly fire sync really gets everybody on the same page with anticipating what's going to happen and when, based off our predictive analysis of the enemy and based off our targeting and what we need to affect and when. Through that battle rhythm and through that sharing of information in a routine manner, it enables our battery and the FSE to be better prepared to provide that timely and accurate fires. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. I think we talked about some good trends at the battery and company level. We exposed some requirements on the brigade FSE to enable our company, our FSE, and our firing batteries to provide those timely and accurate fires. And I think that the conversation hopefully will drive some feedback from units out there. Let us know what you think. I appreciate everybody's time listening to the podcast. From all of us here at the JMRC Vampire team, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to interacting with you in our next podcast coming up shortly, and it's going to be the role of the NCO within the FA Battalion Main Command Post. So thanks again from all of us here at JMRC.